The Carolina Panthers have won 2 games in a row.
They're on a streak.
Again, I refer back to the great philosopher Lou Brown from Major League. 2 wins in succession is 2 in a row. 3 would be a winning streak, but I am willing to bend that rule based on the fact that it is the Panthers. And now they have 3 wins on the season.
We have to take it when we can get it.
Absolutely. All right, let's bring in the old guy from Panthers.com, the one and only Darin Gantt, who joins us to gloat about the second consecutive win. I don't think gloat is the right word. Real quick, first of all, how was the trip?
Oh, the trip was amazing. The Germans are a good hang. I am pro-Germany at this point. Here's what I like about the Germans. Number one, they love to sing. Even after the music stops playing, they just continue singing, which is brilliant. Number two, walked into a local German pub the other day. I may or may not have been the only English speaker in the place. Held up one finger, said Pilsner. The guy said an amount of words, which I assumed was money. And I held him a card up in the air, and he said, "No, 20 minimum for card." And I said, "2 Pilsners?" And he said, 3. And I said, "Okay." And so we communicated. We crossed a bridge. We breached a barrier. We found common ground there in that place. It must have been what Reagan felt like in '87.
That is fantastic. I love starting this way with Darin Gantt. All right, now let's get to what we saw. So this is now the second consecutive week. The numbers weren't eye-popping. He's not, headed for the Pro Bowl or anything.
You don't think 125 yards on 16 of 25 passing, a clean 4.9 yards per attempt.
Well, the numbers were bigger last week.
The bar has sufficiently been lowered. So.
Right, but the bar based on what we saw early, what we saw against Denver, for the most part, all I think we should have been looking for is does it look like he can play? And now for the last 2 weeks, it looks like he can play. If you put pieces around him and give him plays to execute properly down the field, he has a chance to play. That's what I was looking for, and I think back-to-back weeks, we absolutely saw that, and the Giants' pass rush is certainly a lot better than what we saw against New Orleans. I thought there was a lot to like from Bryce Young.
Yeah, there was. I mean, and there was positive momentum. There was forward progress. I think, you know me, I'm a stickler for context, and context is everything. You are playing the league's leading sack team, with some guy named Brian Burns, who had a game like the Atlanta game to start last year, where he was very visible early and then less so late. But a makeshift offensive line with 2 starters not in places, basically 2 new starters, held them to 1 sack. Bryce, while throwing the ball to a collection of receivers that includes 2 rookies, one of whom is undrafted, David Moore, and a 5'6" practice squatter named Devin Tompkins, got a win on the road, on a road game in Germany. So, again, did it help that Chuba Hubbard continues to work like a man with 10 kids? It does. Does it help that the Giants are not very good? It does. But it beats the alternative, and that's what I've been saying about him for the last couple weeks, is after what we saw from him start of the year, to see him have positive results, to do things that you latch on to, that's what everybody around here wanted to see. And what he did the first 2 weeks obviously wasn't good enough. So being able to change that narrative a little bit, put positive results on the board, I think is something everybody around this place wanted to see.
And I think we have seen a lot of growth. I like Jalen Coker a lot. I think Jalen Coker looks like he can be part of your receiving core going forward. I don't know if he's a 2 or a 3 or a 4, but he looks like he can contribute, absolutely. We're seeing a lot of good things from J.T. Sanders at tight end. And I think we're seeing growth from Xavier Legette as well. And I've liked all of that. I do like the fact that this was the first time that I thought Dave Canales really leaned into his best player on offense, and that has been Chuba Hubbard all season. There has been, and maybe it was about trying to get something more out of Miles Sanders, and I anticipate the carries will go down when Jonathan Brooks eventually starts playing. But I like the fact that they signed Chuba Hubbard. To me, it was either sign him or trade him because it didn't make any sense to go into the summer or the early spring with him not having a contract. I like that bit of business.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and again, Chuba, I can't say this enough. Chuba's the kind of guy you don't mind investing in because he works like that. And he is an object lesson as much as, the third leading rusher in the NFL right now. So
right.
I just think that because he works the way he works, because he does all the things, I've said over and over again, look at what Dan Morgan has done. His very first move as GM was to extend Derek Brown's contract, which is a no-brainer. He was your best player.
Yeah.
But when you watched OTAs all offseason, before they started practicing at the beginning of sprint lines, who's out there? It's Derek Brown and Chuba Hubbard leading the lines on offense and defense. You find those guys who are cornerstone pieces that you want to build around. You invest in the people who work the hardest and put the most into the program. And, oh, by the way, happen to be producing at a high level. That's what you want to spend your money on, and they did.
Darin Gantt, Panthers.com, is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show at Darin Gantt on Twitter. So, at this point, I think it's almost comical. And I don't know, and I'm not going to ask you to, editorialize this with me, but I can't think of a reason why Bryce Young shouldn't be the starter, barring injury or if his performance goes the other way. I just think you have to let him go and continue to develop. And for whatever reason, Dave Canales just doesn't want to let it go, doesn't want to, admit it, but that's what coaches do. But can you think of a reason why Bryce shouldn't be the starter?
Well, I mean, the reason Andy started instead of Bryce is Andy was playing better football than Bryce. Right. And, now, I mean, it depends. Has Bryce put a game on the board that is as good as Andy's game in Las Vegas? No, he hasn't. That's kind of and I think that's part of the reason. And again, this is me speculating and playing shade tree psychologist, but I think that if you're looking for reasons why things are a certain way or whatever, I think that they want to keep Bryce in the mindset of continue to earn this job. You're doing great so far, positive step, but nothing is being ordained. Nothing is being given. So, I mean, they've done that for the last couple of weeks. Things have worked out okay. It's obviously when you go up against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, you're going to need more than 125 passing yards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's just a guess based on 30 years of observation of professional football. But I think it's valid to keep him in a mindset of what can you do to get yourself better. And I thought it was telling the way Dave talked about it after the game the other day. Number one, people want to parse. Oh, he didn't confirm, whatever. I mean, when he says Bryce made a really great statement for himself today, I think that told you everything you needed to know in terms of the mechanics of it. But in the way Canales said, he had a pretty good day. And there were a couple things away from being a really good day. I think that's the soundbite not enough people are latching on to.
I agree with that.
It's important to hang on to those holes in the game, the flaws, the things you want to see him get better at. And so I think if you can keep him in that mindset of improvement, it's better for everybody.
Darin Gantt is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. I 100% agree because by no means – now, I thought the game against the Saints – was a better performance than the one against the Giants. No pressure, but I thought it was better because you could take the interception that he was charged with, and yes, he should have thrown maybe one or even two other interceptions that just were not completed by the Saints. But the pass to Liggett down the sideline, down the right sideline, which was ultimately an interception. I mean, it was a dynamite throw, and it should have been a completion. So I think the numbers would have been better. So I think that performance is probably a little bit better than this one. But I think the defense he faced here, at least early on, was a little bit better, and the circumstances surrounding this one were maybe a little bit more difficult. So grading on a curve. I like the performance. But, yeah, he missed some throws. But also I think he's shown that he can make the throws. And that's really what I want to see, and hopefully to continue to develop.
Yeah, and I think, too, this feels a little bit like dissecting the drive from Buffalo in the preseason.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
But that third down pass to Liggett in the fourth quarter to keep the clock rolling, keep everything moving a little bit, that's the throw. That's the one. That's an adult throw right there. And he made it at a time they really needed him to make it. Were the stats big? They weren't. All those things you said are true. But when they needed a play to be made, he made a couple of them. So I think all things considered, good for Bryce. Yeah. But still, very much, I think everybody needs to be mindful of, it's got to get better than that.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, look at what Aaron Rodgers is not doing for the Jets. He's not throwing for a lot of yards because for some reason they can't. And maybe it's just the Jets' disease that Aaron Rodgers could not cure, but we could all see that coming.
Is that like industrial disease?
A little bit. He could not immunize himself from Jets' disease. He couldn't. As much as he claimed.
I suppose. A public health danger to us all, can we say.
Darin Gantt is joining us here. All right, so DJ Wanham got on the field. It's been a minute, so it was good to see that. Jadeveon Clowney had an impact in the game. We're going to see at some point, we're going to see Jonathan Brooks and Adam Thielen come back. So peer into the future. Tell me about what we can expect, hopefully can expect going forward.
Well, here's the thing, and again, these next 7 games, and Cassie Hill's getting ready to put up a Know Your Foe on Panthers.com to break down the back half of the schedule. But I think it's important to remember it's a lot harder than what we've been looking at the last 3 weeks.
Sure.
You know, the Eagles are in there, the Chiefs are in there. You know, the Cowboys looked a lot tougher, you know, 2 weeks ago than it does right now. The Bucks, obviously, Atlanta again, that's tougher. And so at the beginning of the season, we talked about this, and I think I told a lot of people, this sort of felt like a 5 or 6 win team.
Yeah.
And progress would look like win 5 or 6 games, show that you're good at a couple particular things, and then continue to build. Because, listen, you mentioned the example of Clowney and Wanham, and I think it's important. That's the very first time they've had the 2 guys at outside linebacker that they intended to have going into this season. All that is the very most important part of this defense. So, you know, obviously this hasn't gone the way anybody anticipated early on, but seeing those 2 guys produce, I think validates the fact that, maybe Ejiro Evero does know what he's doing after all. Maybe he is a competent defensive coordinator. Some of the goofiest stuff I deal with in the mailbag on a regular basis are people who want to fire the defensive coordinator. I'm like, do you see who he's out there coaching?
Right. That's true.
I mean, there were stretches in there where he had one of his starting front 7 going into the year, and that one was Shy Tuttle. So I think it's just been tough for those guys all year based on personnel. So you can see over the next 7 weeks that Wanham is a part you want to build around. Is Jadeveon Clowney a part of the long term here? We'll find out. But I think they've got a bunch of draft picks, 9 total and 8 in the first 5 rounds, that they're going to add a bunch of parts on defense. And if one of those parts is somebody with promise as a pass rusher, I mean, to me, I don't want to get bound up in quarterback talk. There are a lot of ways you can fill that position for 2025 and beyond. Mm-hmm. But to me, if you're picking in the top 10 and have an opportunity to address pass rusher, gosh, man, that seems like something you would want to do with this team as it stands right now, because I'll take you back. And again, I am old. In 1995, Lamar Lathan was pretty good. He came in as a free agent from Houston and put up good results. The next year, when you put Kevin Green on the other side from him, it was a force multiplier. Not only did you add a guy who is now in the Hall of Fame, but it made the other guy that much better. So imagine with what you've seen out of Wanham for the last couple of years and then on Sunday, and imagine adding somebody with young legs. Imagine adding that, you know, and I don't want to get irresponsible and saying the names of college football players that I haven't seen with my own 2 eyes. self-awareness. I would just be saying names, but imagine putting that top-end pass rusher on the other side from him. Imagine adding another inside linebacker, somebody who can play behind Josie Jewell, Trevin Wallace. Imagine somebody else up front with Ashawn Robinson and Derek Brown, and you can kind of see the path forward, that Dr. Strange 14 million pathways. Suddenly there are more of them available because I just think that they've got some good coaches in place. They've got some good players. They just need more people, and they need time.
I agree. It is really about personnel. I think Ejiro Evero is a good coach. It's not about that.
And again, on the other side of the ball, too, I think quarterback talk is going to take over this offseason because it always does.
Yeah.
And I mentioned pass rusher. Wide receiver is another one of those places. There are a lot of names at the top of this draft who happen to play wide receiver, and that's something they can't ignore because as much as you like Jalen Coker, he's still an undrafted rookie from Holy Cross. There's a reason he was undrafted and from Holy Cross. So you can upgrade there. You can't, we're seeing stuff from Xavier Leggett, but he's not, I don't know that he's that guy yet. So they're going to have to continue to look for parts on both sides of the ball.
We are going to talk more about this. Darin Gantt, Panthers.com. Ask the old guy. Everything you need at Panthers.com. At Darin Gantt with 2 T's for extra talent. My friend, I will talk to you down the road. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll have you a mailbag up on Panthers.com tomorrow. I'm trying to be on bye week schedule, too, around here.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for giving us some time on your bye week. All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. See y'all.
You got it.